Maybe you're right. Mark's over in Australia or somewhere. Maybe you're right.
All right, Dave, go ahead whenever you're ready. I don't see anybody in the attendees, so that means we have 3 members present. That's not a quorum.
That's not a quorum.
Can't take any official action. In that.
Okay. Just go home now. Bye. Okay, I'd like to call the Lacey Planning Commission meeting October 4th open. Call to order. Can we even, we can't even approve minutes, can we?
No, well,
Okay, so we do not have a quorum tonight. So we're going to skip approval of the agenda and consent items. And what do we, this is the first time this has happened. Do we go through the rest of everything? Public comments?
We don't have,
we can still do public comment. We can still do the rest of the agenda. Just no official actions can be taken tonight.
Okay. So public comments, Ryan, let them on in.
just gonna say, I don't think we have anybody for our public comments, but if there are, go ahead and use the raise hand function of the webinar and we can let you in. We don't have anybody here in the council chambers either, so.
All righty.
Say that we don't have any members of the public in attendance.
All right, no public in attendance, so we will move on to commission members' reports. Daphne?
Nothing.
None? Karen?
Yeah, I actually was able to participate in the South Sound, oh golly gee, where we're doing water quality testing. Forgive me for forgetting, but I thought that it was really interesting. We're getting students from all around the area to do water quality testing to see how our watersheds are the health of the watershed and factors that are contributing. So I thought that was a really interesting project to get students excited about our environment. And then I also went to another training for creating rain gardens. I thought that was something that was a really great way to think about, you know, ways to pull water back into our groundwater and create these healthy gardens. So I was wondering if that was something that the city was supporting, or any way that we could encourage the development of planting, you know, local our plants that are native to our area, and like promoting the health of our community.
So who did the program on the rain garden? Did you catch that?
Oh gosh, the South Sound, you know, I'm forgetting it right now, but
Yeah, there are, of course, through our stormwater regulations, we promote rain gardens, but you know, I think what you're looking at was the application for somebody at their, you know, their home or local property that they can convert and build rain gardens as part of their property improvement. There have been programs out there in the past of other jurisdictions that have given somewhat of a rebate to do those type of things as demonstration projects. We haven't done that here, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be done in the future through the stormwater management planning, and it's just a matter of how you develop a funding stream and a program management. But right now, our water resources department does a lot of work with stream team and other ways to help deal with stormwater within our natural and circulatory environments at this point. So just those are things that are out there, but as capacity allows or programs come through grants or some of those natures, then they can look at adding some of those enhancements going forward.
lovely.
Okay, anything else? I will mention to Ryan that I, because of my health thing that I'm dealing with, I postponed that special project out in Jubilee that we were going to work on till November. So just, I haven't forgot about it, and I think it's an important part for public outreach. And so it's still on my agenda to do in November. And so you and I can discuss that.
Okay. I'm glad you reminded me, because that was long gone out of my brain.
It was, it wasn't out of mine. I had to deal with it because I knew it was coming up, so. Director's report.
I do have just a little bit of news. We had been conducting interviews for potential individuals to fill the vacancies on the planning commission. Spoke with the mayor today. He selected to go forward with two recommendations to council, which will be presented at the October 20th council meeting. The applicants he's recommending for appointment, a person by the name of Judy Doyle, who lives out in the northeast area in the Meridian Campus neighborhood. And then a familiar name, Kathy Mercia. She's been previously on the planning commission, served one term. She had to step away for family commitments and then looking back to come back for that second term. So those appointments were presented to the council. If affirmed, then we'll have a full complement of planning commission members going forward. Especially it's important now that we get into some of the neighborhood commercial designation reviews coming in this next year, and then ultimately the overall update to the competency plan is due in 2025. So we'll hopefully continue a full complement of planning commission members through that whole process. That's it.
Okay. All righty. We will move on to new business. Grant Beck, you are up to bat here on this one.
Thank you so much. And it says Grant Beck on the agenda, but this is going to be a community economic development team presentation. So Sarah and Reese are here to talk about some of their projects that they've worked on. And I'm going to be filling in for Samara, who's had another commitment tonight. And so I instructed Reese and Sarah to yell Samara every time one of their projects come up. And Samara likes that idea because it's a form of Tourette's that she can really get into. So she was excited to watch the video afterwards. Yeah, I don't know.
That's
Fine,
a sort of shout out.
And hopefully you can see the story map development update, October 2022. Is that am I sharing the correct screen?
Looks like it. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, excellent. So I think we did something similar to this earlier in the year for the Planning Commission, and this is just an update. We've organized it a little bit different, and we're going to focus on first some of the projects that are in construction and coming along that have already been approved through the planning process, and then focus on some of the ones that are still under review at one level or another. So I'm going to just dive right in and start with the updates. And we're going to start with the multifamily constructions. And the first one out of the gate is the Hub Apartments.
Okay, so I'm Sarah Schelling I'm a senior planner. I don't think I've met either of you guys yet. This is actually the first meeting that I've been back in person for 3 years, I think. It's pretty exciting. I worked on the Hub Apartment project. And this is an apartment project located just down the street at 6th Avenue. It's in the Woodland zoning district. It's 151 units. It's mostly small studio apartments. It's designed to be a fairly urban type of project. Had to be designed to the Woodland District form-based code requirements. And it's also taking advantage of the multifamily tax exemption program. So this is a project that's in Lacey, the new Lacey Midtown, formerly Woodland District. And the multifamily exemption program is something that the council adopted based on some recommendations from the Woodland District strategic plan that was approved back in, I think, 2011. Is that correct? So this is the first multifamily project in Lacey Midtown Woodland District since the 6th Avenue apartments down the street from this were constructed. So it's a pretty exciting project. It's also got some commercial space down on the bottom floor on 6th Avenue there, and the owners anticipate a tap house for that space, which I think they are hoping to open maybe sometime this fall for occupancy. And this is complete. There are people, it just got its certificates of occupancy just probably this past month, and there are already people living in the building.
Actually, I think they're at this point over 30% leased out.
It's great.
So, and you'll notice I'm putting the what the projects originally were known as when they came in for continuity with the previous presentations. So that's something we often get as name changes during the middle of a project.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, to go back, Grant, the kind of the efforts of the Woodland District, now the Midtown is trying to complete the grids. Can you talk a little bit about how this project may, eventually extend and complete the grid as other development around it occurs? For Glenroof?
Oh, yes, and we don't have a picture on that side, but on the north side is the extension of Woodland Loop. And it's an odd roadway. It connects to 4th Avenue directly to the north, and it's a street that's been identified in our transportation plans for forever, for as long as I've been around. But instead of doing it, there were some challenges with completing that street because of the size of the parcel and meeting the requirements of the code for the building to be at the street. And so in lieu of doing a full public street section, what they've done is incorporated what's called a Woonroof, which is a street and also public common space. So it will allow, it's a smaller road section that allows traffic to move through to 4th Avenue, but it's also not so wide that it wouldn't allow public to walk across and be used as pedestrian space. So it completes or it acts to complete the intent of the code to make a grid system, but a little bit differently by making some walkability and providing some pedestrian space as well.
And on the far side of the building is the 4th Avenue right-of-way corridor that we have the majority of the right-of-way. We now have it programmed into our construction projects for the city to use some arterial street funds to actually build within that existing right-of-way 4th Avenue through, so you'll start seeing that grid be built. And then as the property to the left of the screen or west of the property, when it develops in the future, they'll complete the other half of that street, the Woonroof, but that Sarah just described. So as we're doing incremental implementation, as properties come in, we're making sure what's in the policies and the plans are being met. So that over time, we'll see the whole system build and that downtown develop with that grid pattern. Or Midtown develop with that grid pattern.
All right.
The next project is the Serenity Apartment Project, and this is located at 444 Carpenter Road. It's currently under construction. They're getting close to some certificates of occupancy on some of the buildings. This is kind of a unique project. It's 82 units and 5 buildings. It's a little bit over density, and they were able to go over density by adding doing a few things that were kind of above and beyond code minimum, which is allowed in the zoning chapter. So there's commercial space on the bottom floor of the Carpenter Road buildings. There are 3 additional buildings to the back, or 4 additional buildings to the back, and this is just the front building. So there's commercial space on the bottom, and then they've also incorporated 10 live work units in addition as part of the 82 total residential units. And then they've also done some other low impact development techniques. They've incorporated pervious pavement, concrete and asphalt throughout the site. They're doing the bioswales, the rain garden type planter strips throughout the site, and then also doing solar panels and additional electric vehicle charging stations. And currently, now electric vehicle charging stations are a requirement. They did elect to do those prior to that becoming a requirement in order to get some additional density on that site. Samra?
Before we go there, the Planning Commission just reviewed a rezone to the property directly to the south of this. This is the Jeff Powell project, the PB. He'll be coming in for an extension of this project effectively in the future. All right, these are out on 15th. This is the Madera apartment complex. It also includes 23 single-family dwelling units. There's 346 units, 14 buildings. It includes some carriage houses. Sorry, Rick was distracting me. It's under construction now, and some of the buildings are getting pretty close to being finished, although not occupied. You can see this is a little further along, and then this is part of the same project as well. This was formerly known as the Woodland Meadows Apartments and the Nouvelle Apartments. So again, tracking things through time sometimes becomes difficult for us with all the name changes. Rick, anything to add on Madera?
No.
What's carriage house? What is that?
They're basically units above garages. So there's the smaller units. I think most of them are studios or 1-bedrooms. So it's just a kind of a way to infill a little bit. Yeah. Griffin?
Samara?
Wow, I get to go again. So I'm not even sure where this is. Is this up off 32nd, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So, and 183 more apartment units, 12 buildings on this one. It's typical garden style apartments. You can see it's currently in the construction. They're vertical and doing all their road frontage improvements and on-site improvements. Rick? Good? Nope, you're not good?
So the South Bay Village Apartment Project, it's 144 units and 6 buildings. So this is located up in the northeast area as well. It's located in the South Bay Village community commercial area on the southwest corner of Hawkesbury Road and Marvin Road. This development, they're under construction, several of the they're getting pretty close on at least a couple of the buildings. This center, South Bay Village, was originally approved, I think back in 2009 for mostly commercial uses. In 2019, the property owners or the applicant for the apartments came in and requested a site plan amendment to include these 144 apartment units. There's still some commercial located on the site, so there will be 144 units located along the eastern, exactly where that green dot is, the eastern portion of the South Bay Village site, western portion, sorry. And then on the east side of the site, there's a daycare center that's just about complete, ready for certificate of occupancy, and then the AM/PM. And to the south of the daycare center, there's going to be additional commercial development. So it's going to be a mixed use center with some residential, a few commercial uses, some restaurants, maybe some retail space, a daycare center, and a gas station.
Does this development have carports?
I think it has a few. I think it does have a few. Are you looking for a development with carports? I'm curious.
No, I just, it's close by to my house. I just was,
Okay.
this is by the Arco station.
It is, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. I just noticed the width across seemed very large
Oh, okay.
between the buildings.
It's really not. It's really
Is that
not.
deceiving?
Yeah, it is. In the pictures especially, it's deceiving. There
Okay.
will probably be some carports out in front. And actually, I think there's some garages as well, so.
Okay.
This is Samara.
Oh, this one's, I think, pretty much nearing total completion now. This is a townhome style development in the Shelter Farm area. It's built to the standards of townhomes, so conceivably at some time in the future they could be divided and sold as separate units, but they're operating as rentals at this time, a single unit. They've got 23 buildings, a clubhouse, a swimming pool, and again, it's coming along really well and is getting close to completion.
Those are some pretty mature trees. You know, obviously we're there way before this
Yep.
was built.
But it's definitely a urban frontage and urban curb appeal. I think it's going to be a real fun project.
What do these run for rentals? What's the cost to rent one of these?
It's expensive. I think we looked up, and some of the
27 to 2,800.
some of them, like the 2 bedrooms, were up in the 4,000 range.
Holy schmoly.
And if you look at the upper right-hand corner of the aerial map, you can see kind of down in the left-hand corner, the subdivision. That was the Shelter Farm subdivision, which I believe came through preliminary plat approval somewhere in the mid-2000s. And that particular property was zoned moderate density 6 to 12 at the time, so they had to achieve a minimum density of 6. So they did the subdivision plat. That came in about 3.5, but this particular Woodbrook Townhome section was the location of the old barn and house. And that was designated as a future development tract that had to reach a certain minimum density, which is why we see the townhomes development now achieving that average 6 units to the acre along the entire plat that originally started in 08, 06 or 08. That's why you see the mature trees, because all that's infrastructure and streets and planter strips and street trees were installed with the original subdivision. And it's now that infill piece for the Woodbrook townhomes.
4,000 a month. It's crazy. This is Samara as well.
She didn't say she had so many projects this year. So this is another one out up in the Hawks Prairie Meridian campus area. It's 216 units, 10 buildings, and in the south area down here, there's a reserve area for future neighborhood commercial style development. So this one just got their grading permits, and the building permits are in out the door at this point, but they're still just scarfing out the property for the development. So this is one of many things going on out in that area, including a bunch of multifamily. So.
And this was one the planning commission was involved in as well through a rezone application. This was all originally zoned community commercial. And was rezoned a couple years ago, to high density residential with a neighborhood commercial component right around the intersection of 31st. Is that 31st? Yeah,
Yes.
31st Avenue and Willamette Drive.
So Campus Springs Townhomes, they're 28 3-story townhouse units. They're not, they're being constructed as condominiums. This piece of property was set aside during the original Campus Springs subdivision approval. Because there was a requirement that there be a certain amount of multifamily. So they're developing these actually as condominiums rather than townhouses, so that they can still sell them as owner, so they can sell them essentially, but they're not townhouses because townhouses are considered single family, condos are multifamily. This does have a companion project across the street, Campus Reserve, which is lower down on the list, but the building permits are in for the structures, and those are currently under review. Obviously, grading has started on the site.
What's the difference between a condo being multifamily and a townhome not?
So a townhouse has real property lines on the ground, and a condominium is not. They're built more like, the building codes are different. Condos are allowed to be constructed more like an apartment building versus a townhouse where there's a property line and you have to have firewall separations in between units.
So these will look like apartment buildings then?
Well, they'll look like townhouses. I don't know that they're going to be constructed exactly like a townhouse, and they're calling them townhouses. So they'll look like row houses, but they'll be sold as condominiums. It's a little convoluted with the ownership pattern, but
And straddling.
yes, yes. Did you have anything?
All right, so we're going to get into some of the commercial and industrial, some of the other permits in process, starting off with tech equipment.
Okay, so this is Tech Lacey, Tech Equipment, and Tech Equipment is a Tech Equipment sells large tractor, not semi trucks on their site. So they'll be, in addition to selling semi trucks, they'll also be servicing semi trucks. And I don't think that there's another seller or servicer of semi trucks. I think they're few and far between along the I-5 corridor. So this is the city was really excited that they came and chose Lacey. This is actually a 13-acre site that they're constructing on the northeast corner of Marvin Road and Willamette Drive, or Willamette Drive. So it's a 13-acre parcel, but only 5.8 acres are being set aside for the tech equipment piece. The rest of the parcel, because it's zoned Hawks Prairie Business District, the rest of the parcel on the south framing the roundabout has to be constructed as commercial retail. So more like the type of development that you see across the street at Britton Plaza, the smaller scale retail restaurants type of use. And that will come sometime down the road. They don't have land use approval for that yet, but the tech equipment project is under construction and probably will be ready to open within, I would imagine, within the year. I think that's it on that one. Did you have anything you wanted me to add on that one?
No, other than with this, we try to, ensure along the Marvin Road frontage, because the building placement and the tractor displays, that we want to try to work with them to bring the building or framework. And so they're going to be building was it a trellis?
It's a plaza display area, a large concrete kind of, it's not a gazebo because it is very large. Kind of a concrete, almost like showroom, outdoor showroom. They'll have a truck on the kind of on the pedestal, and then I think they're putting some benches, making kind of plaza areas right there on that corner of the site, and then really landscaping and putting a wall up to the north to screen, the rows of tractor trailers that they have for display.
With the work that Sarah did to work with them on that frontage design, and with they're going to be doing the south piece next to the intersection as Hawks Prairie more retail pads, you'll see that transition from the commercial retail transition into the light industrial commercial that's further to the north along Marvin Road. So you'll see that nice transition.
I think NC Machinery is Samara's, right?
It's a similar use. It's a sales, rental, and service of heavy equipment. The first phase is under construction. As you can see there, they came back in for a revision to their permits to add a fueling station to the facility. So that's under review right now. But that's what that one's all about. So it's actually a very complementary sort of use to the tech equipment and the entire industrial warehousing area and the work that's already been done out there.
Is it like a trucking fueling station or like a
Yeah,
car fueling station?
it's not public fueling stations for themselves, for them.
Or their own equipment rentals.
Yeah.
They're a Caterpillar dealership, so
Oh,
they
gotcha.
will rent the equipment and also sell the heavy equipment.
Yep.
And then, of course, with servicing that equipment, that's what the fueling is for.
Gotcha.
Yep. All right.
So a little closer to us, this is the landing on the corner of Sleater Kinney and Pacific. This is a wholesale site redevelopment. I think there were like 7 parcels that got demoed to the ground for redevelopment. This is all in the Woodland District zoning district. So they're all subject to the form-based code requirements. So you see the buildings fronting the street. They are subject to minimum height requirements in the zone of 20 feet. With entrances that face the roadway. So currently the 7-Eleven is open, the Chipotle is open. there's gonna be a Mod Pizza, and then there's a couple of other pads toward the back that they're still looking for tenants on. But that was a big improvement to that corner from what was there previously, the old flower shop and the bowling alley. And
It is a big improvement. I'll tell you, went into the 7-Eleven this weekend, bought my winning lottery ticket that I'll
Did
check
ya?
tonight, but getting in is really awkward. It's, I honestly.
did you go in on Sleater Kinney
Yeah, no, went on
or
Garden,
Pacific?
or Pacific, yeah, and then getting into the Chipotle is really
Weird.
tight and awkward. It's, I'm not sure, it's gonna be a few parking lot accidents coming, so.
Was it the drive-through? I know they're working on the drive-through.
Just,
trying to
the-
figure out the drive-through right
The
now.
spacer, so it's such a tight right
Yeah.
getting in there, you're slowing significantly to turn that right, which is gonna back traffic up, and the 7-Eleven was awkward getting back out once you parked in front of the building, so just a little observations from having been there.
Yeah, it is really interesting that the places are so tight to each other, and that, you know, I was going in there because this is close to my house, and of course the kids had to have a new Slurpee, right? So, but going in and there's some fencing that's there, you know, that's I guess where the Mod Pizza is gonna be.
Yeah.
And then it did seem like there was a lot of confusion in the parking lot. I don't know if people just need to learn how to
How to navigate
navigate the new
Yeah.
areas.
Well, that's one of the challenges that we're facing now with the cost of land and trying to put the uses in there and then maximize the use of the land. And so you're going to, especially in the more down, the commercial areas like this, you're going to see a lot more of that compact type of parking lot design. So it's one of the things we got to try to look out for, movability and entrances, so we don't, you know, cause stacking or back up into the rights of way. That's one of those pushes and pulls of trying to get some more intense development, especially if we get more residential, then people in theory would be in that particular area, walk in there more as well. You know, other people, other types of traffic. But one of the things I want to highlight is Sarah mentioned, that is the minimum height requirement. And that's something the form-based codes process that Ryan worked on, and then of course Sarah's been implementing, and then as well as Reese, is you look at that minimum height and what that does to this relationship between the right of way and the private space of the buildings, and it kind of creates a much better frame to the street and a better presence, so that you're not just seeing a low slung building and the old strip mall type of design.
Oh, it is so much better looking.
And then-
It is,
And
yeah,
then
it
the
looks
storefront
so much
windows along the Pacific front with the 7-Eleven, and the entrance at the corner that's actually open and people can use. And a lot of times you see that happen where they, you know, close it off, lock it, and put a big old advertisement on the window screen. And that's one of the things too that's really nice. And if you've been in the 7-Eleven, I haven't, I admit, but Ryan mentioned to me too, they have a little counter there. You can get some snacks and sit at the counter or like a lunch break or something like that. So it's kind of a new type of design, interior design. So it's kind of nice to see.
It'll just be tight on Free Slurpee Day, so.
7-Eleven, remember July 11th, we always hit 7-Eleven.
And I will take exception to the older development because I do miss the bookstore still, the used bookstore.
Yeah. And the Thai food. I thought they were opening somewhere else though.
This is Samra? This
It
is a Samra. And this one I actually have more background on because I was here from the beginning on this. So this is kind of an exciting development in that it's a mixed use. So on this side of the property, there's going to be 350 residential units with some ground floor retail. And then on the other side over here, which is developing right now, about 60,000 square feet of retail, food service, and commercial entertainment. Starbucks is the first thing out of the ground because apparently there wasn't one within 20 feet of this location already. But they've also got some general retail space. This is just shell right now. It's not leased out. And the permits are issued, but it hasn't gone vertical yet, is a facility called 23 Kitchens, which is going to be a commercial pickleball, commercial recreational use. with 11 pickleball courts. I think 8 of them inside, certainly about most of, or some of them inside. And it also includes a little restaurant with a rooftop balcony so people can grab a beer and a burger and sit up there and watch other people play pickleball, which is the way I play pickleball. So it,
Heckler's Club?
I'm sorry?
You can heckle other people playing pickleball.
That's right. That does sound like fun. Leonard would be happy with that plan. So yeah, it's kind of exciting. It's tending to develop as kind of a commercial recreational concept, which is kind of fun. We have so many people excited about the pickleball courts that I've got a list of about 3 or 4 who want me to call them, when we get an opening date for that facility. So I think it's going to be real popular with the community. Okay. Now that's what's under construction out there, all the projects you're seeing. Now we're going to go into some of the multifamily stuff that's still under review. And Reese, you do some work here, I guess. This is
It's true, yeah. My name is Rick Grant. I'm an assistant planner here with the city. It's nice to meet everyone. This is Homes on Martin. It's at the furthermost east part of the city there on Martin Way. And it's going to be a consolidation of about, I want to say 4 or 5 parcels into one large triangular parcel. It's definitely an urban design that they're going for. This is technically speaking one building. It's attached by underground parking. It's built on a slope there. It's actually quite a steep site. But they're using that to their advantage, not only for parking to add to that number, but also down in that lower area there will be where they have their kind of storm drainage into a storm pond, and then they're creating paths around it to create a walking area with benches and things of that nature. The building itself got an increase in density. It's in our mixed use, I want to say high density corridor, but they got an increase in density due to them doing some community assets. Some to name out of the many would be they're building to a LEED silver equivalency using high efficiency ducts and things of that nature. They're gonna have like a ride share program via electric scooters that tenants can use to access the area out there, since it is there is still some elements of sprawl that we're trying to get rid of. As well, they're using as many locally sourced materials as they can where feasible, and they'll have multiple pedestrian plazas on the site as well. It's going to be the 96 units, and then as well on the left side there on the west end, there's going to be up to 3 retail units. One's intended to be a cafe of sorts, and then 2 more open retail spaces that I haven't heard word on. They've gotten approval for design review, landscaping, and everything like that. I believe they're working with our building team though to get their submittals in order.
But they're apartments, right?
Yes, yeah, and they're going to be apartments. And we have
Is the Homes on Martin Way kind of the name?
that's the name as is. I haven't heard of
Start
a
out
new proposal
Martin
yet.
Way, East Residential,
Yeah.
and then again, as they get to they probably haven't got their marketing and brand team in place yet, but once they do that, then they'll probably start changing the name again. Yeah.
Well, this is the second one. It came in as Martin Way mixed use.
Yeah.
So
Where on Martin, can you give a business or a landmark for
So
me?
Costco is gonna be just down the way here. River Edge High School is just south of it there.
Oh, okay.
The German diner, it's right on the other side of the German, just north of the.
It's ambiance, but-
Yeah.
We got Utero just to the right of the screen, off the screen.
Okay.
Utero Road, is that what you said?
In the German diner and the curry corner.
So we're getting like 15,000 apartment rentals and 20 condos.
Seems like it. Yeah.
That's all I got on that one. This is an interesting site, Intelco Loop multifamily. So it's going to be the 216 units, 8 buildings, roughly 3 stories each, garden style walk up. There's also going to be a conference facility and clubhouse kind of built into it, which I believe is going to have access for the community to, as well. I know they're pretty set on getting their submittals in for design reviews soon. I've been working closely with their team on that. The site had two separate SPR approvals. One was for multifamily and one was also for three larger structures that would have been closer to like a small scale startup businesses, similar to some of the ones that we have up in our old industrial area. They would have been small spaces, for businesses that needed those types of space, which are pretty rare to come by. But it seems like the main plan moving forward, because it was the same applicant for both approvals, is going to be the multifamily moving forward.
And this is the Lowe's here.
Yeah, so that's going to be, this is South Lacey, says Lowe's down there, Safeway, and then Yelm Highway down the bottom.
I think your dot might be in a slightly wrong spot there, Grant.
That could be. Is it over here?
Yeah, it's that one right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The next one is going to be Gateway at Hicks Lake. This project has been in work now for about, I want to say on the better part of 2 years, going through the process. The reason it was such a lengthy process, it was quasi judicial. It went through that, and that's due to the fact that the clubhouse and pool area for this 132 unit development is in the Shoreline Urban Conservancy Zone. The high density area goes to the west of that zone, on the eastern part or on the western part of the site. So it's 132 units, garden style, 6 buildings total, 5 are the residential, 1 is the clubhouse pool house. It's gotten land use approval, design review, complete submittal has come in this week. And so I'll be reviewing that to make sure it meets the rest of the codes. And then from there, I believe they're ready to submit for building. So this will be going through the building process and civil review very soon.
I should know this, but what's a garden style apartment?
So that's like the ones where you walk up outside, like interior walkways.
They're kind of focused around, they have lots of outdoor garden, lawn, lots of landscaping and stuff. They're more suburban. Most of what you see in Lacey is probably garden style apartments.
Yeah, 2 on 2 stacked, and the internal stairwell.
Right, and this one's Sammer's project as well. It's although they're starting to get their plans in for review. We've approved the land use and the shoreline conditional use permit and variance, which were required because they're proposing a dock that doesn't meet our normal standards. So they provided justification for both the conditional use permit and variance. The hearing examiner recommended approval of that. The city council upheld it, but those 2 types of permits, shoreline conditional uses and shoreline variances, are actually approved. The final authority is the Department of Ecology. So they're reviewing that project right now. They've requested additional information from the applicant, and we're actually meeting with them tomorrow to kind of sort out what ecology is asking for and what they need to provide to approve it. So that one's going to take a little longer to get through our process, simply because we can't take any action on the final permits until ecology and the ecology's appeal period runs through. So that's where that one is. It's a little bit different. It's still kind of garden style, but it's a little more urban looking than the Gateway project. This site plan is older. We required them to pull a lot of this stuff back out of the shoreline setback area, which is 100 feet from the ordinary high water mark. That'll be maintained as a vegetation management zone, basically, with native plantings and little else.
Grant, one thing I forgot to mention, both of these sites, when they develop, one of the conditions that they have is that they will kind of work in a partnership to provide a pedestrian pathway from these sites running along them into the park up north.
and and past the park. They'll do frontage improvements down here, so that'll be full sidewalks, a parking lane protected with bulb outs, and a landscaping strip from the end of the projects here out to 25th. They will be responsible for a pedestrian pathway to make sure that people can get out to the bus routes and stuff from the apartment complex. Thank you. The great point, Reese. That's a Sarah one.
Yes, so this is another apartment project. This is the Britton Place North apartment project, and it's approved for 552 units in 2 phases of construction. This is the site. This site originally had approval of a 226 unit single family home subdivision. That approval expired, and this apartment project is actually a little bit, it works better with the sensitive areas on the site that the single family home subdivision did there. The sites to the north is encumbered with wetlands and slopes and some seeps and springs, and those would all be protected with this development. There's some question about how it's going to move forward and some changes potentially to the project. But right now it does have approval for 552, again, the more garden style apartment units on this.
How would 552 apartments make less of an impact than
Because
100 homes?
the apartments are clustered in buildings, whereas homes require larger lot areas and they can spread out across the site, requiring more infrastructure in terms of roadways and stuff to accommodate all those single family lots versus apartment buildings where you can build up instead of building all the way out. You can concentrate more people in a smaller space.
The roadway designs and utility extensions, then we add more stormwater facilities, all that, everything just builds out. And then also you have the sensitivity of the area to the north where the wetlands is down the hall.
It's 500 houses up north, right?
And they are,
552.
It's a lot of units. It is.
But the counter to that is you have 550 units and you have different trip vehicle dynamics on the roadway systems. But it's not like a 1-for-1 for single family homes, it's like 70% of the trips.
It is.
One multifamily has about 70% of the trips that a single family home would have.
is this the same developer that did across the street?
It is, yes.
And I'm just gonna assume something, which is a dangerous thing to do, but we already have parking issues.
Yeah.
Are those being addressed by the city in some fashion other than the little changes we made?
So they have to accommodate their parking, but we can't require them to do more than what the code would require.
Yeah.
So we've discussed with the applicant the issues with parking on the south side of the roadway as well. It's not the same, it's actually not the same developer. The current property owner who is selling to the applicant owns the parcel to the south, and they recognize that there's parking issues on that parcel to the south. But unfortunately, we can't require more than what the code requires for apartments at this time.
So are they vested under the old?
They
code?
are, but I think they meet the new anyway.
Well, I just guess my assumption is then that we're not gonna let people park on Britton Parkway, right?
We do not, no.
That is a bus route.
Yep.
Okay.
This is gonna be the Carpenter Road Apartments here. It's just come in recently, so it's still in the early stages of review here. It's gonna be 3 buildings, 78 units, garden style apartments again. It'll be you sharing the drainage facility down on the southeast end of it. There are some technical challenges on the site when it comes to some steep slopes on the south end. And so on the angled portion there, parking, and on the southern or the western portion of it. It's probably gonna be larger retaining walls with landscaping down below as opposed to directly on top. But it's in the early stages, so there's not too much going on this one.
And that's where Ruland is, right? Yeah, okay.
This is the Carlo Apartments out in Meridian Campus, the southwest corner of 31st and Willamette. This is a 188 unit, another garden style apartment project. I think this is one of the last parcels that would be potentially available for multifamily out there. So they've really built out. There's lots of projects in with their entitlements for apartments out in Meridian Campus, but it's just about done. And this is just a typical garden style apartment project. They're ready for their grading permit, or the grading permit is ready to be issued based if they just get us a few more pieces of information. And I think they'll probably begin construction sometime this spring.
And for context, this is the Willamette apartment site. And then is that one of the campuses?
That's Campus Reserve.
And that's
We're gonna talk
Campus,
about next. Yeah.
Campus Springs. So
So this is Campus Reserve Townhouses, and this is the sister project kind of to Campus Springs, which is immediately across the street. It's 39 three-story condos on, I think it's about 3 acres. I think it's 3 acres.
Mhm.
And this parcel was set aside with the development of the subdivision, the Campus Reserve subdivision for multifamily. So that's what this development is. It's building out what it was required to do under the original land use approval.
So condos, those ones will be for sale?
Condos, yep. They'll look like a townhouse, but it'll be a condo.
So the 2 condos that you've talked to or spoken about were based on single family conditions for that. And so moving forward, are we going to see more of the condos? Probably not, because those were based on development of this adjacent single family to accommodate. I mentioned that on both of those.
So the condos, the parcels were set aside for multifamily. So any type of multifamily could have gone on any of these parcels. This developer in particular is Lennar. They do more of a single family product. And so they are moving forward with this townhouse product and selling it as condominiums. I think any of our multifamily zones would permit condo development. I think condos are difficult for developers to build because of the State Condominium Act, which makes it kind of a challenge for construction and selling and long-term sale of those products.
I understand that, but this is, wow, a huge amount of rentals that
Yes.
does not create.
Generational wealth opportunities.
Yep, equity and tax breaks and all of the things that we've talked about many times. This is a little daunting to me how many apartment complexes we have going in and the number of units and how that will alter what our community looks like.
It is a lot, and it's definitely dominating the market right now. But we haven't seen any multifamily development prior to about 2018. Before that, it was all single family home development, tract development. And so now the market's shifted, and these are all properties that we did the comprehensive plans, in the past going forward, designated areas for single family, designated areas for multifamily, and trying to get a mixture of housing types. And so in 2018, roughly out of the 18, the 18,000 units or so, we had 71% of single family and roughly 14% multifamily. So the market, and we always had very low occupancy rates. That's why you see the market trying to shift and developers looking at these opportunities through the market and finding these available properties that would designate for that higher density of development. Now, the problem that I see that we have is not enough condos in that mix to meet that multifamily definition. You get even more variety of housing types and entry or exiting out of the traditional home markets. And trying to work with the legislature, there's been several attempts over the last several years to get them to look at addressing the condominium liability laws that's been established in the court systems, so that it's not as risky of an endeavor for somebody to develop condominium project. But that's only one piece. We do see the challenge of not a lot of single family home construction coming into our market because there's not enough available land that's for single family development. That's been designated over the previous years, because it's all been built out. But there's been a lot of that development that has occurred over the last 15 to 20 years. It's just daunting
Hey.
now. Now all you see is multifamily, and that's all that's in the market at this point.
Across the street from 8, across Willamette, where you see that right there, yeah. That's being developed right now, correct?
That's the sister project to Campus Reserves that we talked about earlier. Is the
Okay,
Springs condo project. So it's, I think, 28 units, 29 units of condos that look just like 8 on your page.
okay.
on the page.
So kind of follow up with that conversation though, as we look forward to the next 3 years of updating our comprehensive plan, this is some of the topics that we need to look at. What's the build out look like? What's our mix of units? Because the numbers I cited are out of 2018 numbers. What's our new mix and how do we look at going forward to create opportunities for ownership, entry to housing, and maintaining that variety of housing? What's, you know, as we heard, it was really challenging right now with the multifamily, because typically that could be a easier entry housing choice, but we're seeing the rents being more than, or the same as, or more than most mortgages in the market too. And that's what's the other piece of it that's really challenging, I think, for anybody trying to get into housing, no matter if it's ownership or rental, just getting into housing. And so those are some of the key lifts that we're going to have to start looking at and assessing and tackling through this future planning update to see where we go over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
So north of that, where you see the park, yeah, I see the park, but yeah, is that whole green area the park?
Yes. Except. on the
Okay,
right.
The east of it is a future school site, so
okay.
that clearing there, yeah, that's a future elementary school, I think.
And just so reference, everybody knows a little bit north of that park, right across the street, Campus Glen, is where the gas station is.
I think that's coming up on the list.
Did you have a question or comment, Daphne?
Well, just like, when are we gonna see how many more apartment complexes are we gonna, I feel like we're gonna get to a saturation point and that will be good for, competitiveness of, rentals and everything like this, but this is a whole lot to become on the Lacey market.
Time.
And I think the information they showed us was 2018. That is a long time ago compared to the apartment development we've had since. I just continue to struggle that we're not planning enough for something other than an apartment or a used single family home. And I just worry there's nothing in between those. And there continues to be, we're still staying at the extremes or only at the one extreme now. So.
And those numbers were produced out of the housing needs assessment. We did our housing action plan like a year and a half ago.
Years ago.
Yeah. And that's the challenge too, is our lag in data. There is a lag between making those plans, because there's always that time of reporting and documentation. But again, in fact, we need to revisit those issues and figure out what is best for the community in terms of changing policies or designations or what other mechanisms we can use to help with the housing market. But we're starting to get into this built out scenario where we're going to be subtle tweaks, we're not going to see large development activity. And then also we're going to be affected too what happens in Tumwater, which has a very large area that's still undeveloped, that's going to be going through the same type of development pattern that we've experienced both in residential as well as industrial.
I think you have to think about what's the city's role in the housing market. I think that's kind of, Daphne, I think that's what you're kind of asking, that big question. And for so long, the city's role is to make sure that we have adequate types of housing for all of our residents. What you've seen as a result is a timing issue. And the timing has been that it's been very front loaded with single family, and now we're seeing that the back end be multifamily. What we're headed towards is a build out scenario where we don't have enough land for either. So as we go down the next comp plan update, we'll have to ask ourselves, okay, we're out of single family land, we're now out of multifamily land, what next? And I don't have any answers for that. That's
Oh, I know, it's
something
not
that we
an
have to
easy
ask.
question, but we're planning, I'm thinking we should have been there 2 years ago or something before, I don't know, this is candidly concerning to me, the number of units that are going in as rentals only, with very little viability for conversion to anything for ownership.
And we were asking the opposite question 10 years ago, how do we get more multifamily? Because everything is single family.
But I think we talked multifamily, no, not in the spirit of all apartments, though. I don't think we necessarily envision multifamily just being rentals, though, did we? I always,
Again, you have to think about what the city's role is, we have to look at, what is the vision and what is the zoning, and then let the market figure out what that should be. And that's what we've done, both from a single family perspective and from a multifamily perspective. And it's very difficult for the city's role to be arbitrating what type of multifamily development is appropriate. We can do things like regulate densities and those kinds of things, but we're not here necessarily to say what's for sale and what's not.
Yeah, what we could do is push in where we ought to push, which is at the state level, to get some of those condominium type liability issues dealt with, and sticking your head in the sand all the time over that issue. There's got to be some kind of way to come up with some kind of happy medium in that situation, so people can have some more affordable housing.
And I would just add that it's kind of, there's a cycle to things, and single family homes are the easiest to finance, they're the easiest to construct. They're the low hanging fruit for the market. Apartment complexes are the next step up from that, garden style, and then your urban style. But the condominium and the ownership, like I live downtown Olympia, and that's coming even just now to Olympia because that's the next step as land prices, as housing prices go up, to be able to support that kind of thing, because condominiums are both more risk, harder to finance, there's more liability. So you need that more mature baseline to either convert or build new. So it should come, in other words.
And to emphasize what Ryan and Grant were saying too, is you have the multifamily products being built. The conversion to those to condominiums can be done because you don't have to change the building standards, because then you start looking at creating a condo association and describing basically the space out there within those interior walls. So there also can be conversions of these type of units into condominium. So part of me was like, well, we got to change help convince the legislature to change those rules, because we're out of time, kind of late for that for new construction, but that doesn't mean conversion couldn't happen. And we've seen conversions. When I first came here to the city of Lacey, I think we processed about 2 or 3 conversions of older multifamily stock into condo type of ownership. So there is that possibility, and that's something too we can explore as we do the planning work for the next 3 years.
In fact, that was kind of all the rage in 2005, 2006, 2007 to get people into housing. Was developers were going in and converting old apartment buildings. I lived in Renton or Auburn at that time and started looking at apartments that were converted at that time to condos. But so it does happen.
Definitely very important points and valid concerns that we need to look at.
And I've voiced them before.
Yeah.
This is just this is a lot that you're showing us. This is a lot.
Moving on. So getting into some of the new commercial industrial developments that are in review. The first, I know this one, Samers, because I've worked with her on it. This is the landing at Hawks Prairie. This is where the Red Robin, there's a Pho restaurant. They're doing a little infill project of a tree tract that was not serving that function well at all. You can see they're not healthy. They're sparse. They're not going to live. So they're converting the tree tract to another retail space. They'll be adding more trees throughout the site, and most likely doing a fee in lieu of, so we can plant trees elsewhere in the city, more suitable location to maintain that canopy. So this is in process now, and I think it's in the agency review stage at this point.
Shanley, hey, where would they put trees in there if they use that space, that parking lot? is pretty
They're gonna, yeah, it is, but they're gonna enhance some of the parking islands like here. And that's what all they wanted to do in the initial version. That's not going to be acceptable for mitigation. So that's why Samra's been working with them on the fee in lieu of, so we can get that canopy in a location where it's going to be successful. Did that answer?
Yeah, I think it's already too little parking already, so I would be concerned about more retail going in, and this is my neck of the woods, so it's pretty tight in there and hard to find a spot to park already, so.
Well, if they'd stop building such popular restaurants, that, bookstores are very low parking impact. All right, that's another Sarah project.
Yeah, so this is located in the old Sears building. This is At Home, which is kind of like Home Goods. You see commercials for Home Goods.
There.
So that's going to go in the old Sears space. They're working through the land use process right now. It is in South Sound Center, which is also part of the Woodland zoning district. And it's in the master planned area of the Woodland zoning district. And so the aim or the intent of the master planned area was to convert South Sound Center Mall into something that looked more like a downtown block almost. Improving the parking lot to have kind of a grid system with more trees planted, potentially identifying some outer pads on the outside that could be built with additional retail, both on the backside of Sears and to the north of Sears, and maybe even along Cedar Kinney, to make it a more urban city center type development. So with their development, At Home was required to submit, or with their application, At Home was required to submit a master connectivity and pedestrian improvement plan. So with their tenant improvement permits, they're also going to be improving the parking lot immediately around their store with some additional landscaping, some pedestrian areas, and then identifying some out paths for potential future development of that site. At Home is currently in project review, and they are ready to get started in construction as soon as we'll let them. So
It's a retail space, is
It
At
is.
Home
it is, it's like
company?
Home Goods, which is kind of like maybe Cost Plus World Market or any other kind of home decor store. And I don't know that there's a bunch out here, but there's some Home Goods down to the south. There's some lots of pillows, I guess, and, oh, right, yes.
And, the larger version, and there's also, I think we can move the other store, it's kind of the larger Pier 1 that's over there too, but,
Home Market.
World Market, thank you. But also too, you drive by there, you see that there's construction on, that's the demolition permit. So the sequence is they're doing the demolition permit, but they haven't got their actual TI and building permits that Sarah mentioned.
Some high school of our parking lot, so.
Yes.
To improve it would be
Yes.
great.
Well, and what's happening, so as the individual buildings or individual tenants come in as part of that master planning through the Woodland District code requirements, as each of those tenants come in, as Target comes in and as they submit permits that reach a certain value, they have to start making, incremental improvements throughout that parking lot so that it does eventually create a nicer environment and a more urban environment, or a less parking lot, suburban parking lot, mall environment than what it is right now. So At Home will be a good start. So Olympia Orthopedics at the Hickory, we're gonna move back out to the northeast area. So the Hickory parcel, it's the one on the west side there of that road, is owned by Kaufman Brothers. real estate, and they've had that property in for a number of years and has had land use approval on a commercial development, since I think 2017, without any, they haven't been able to get any tenants. So they've been able to secure Ole Orthopedics for that site. Ole Orthopedics will occupy the western portion of the site with a major clinic. I think, I can't remember, let's see, 86,000 square foot medical office building. And then on the other side on Hickory Stick Drive, which separates the Hickory and the Britton Plaza development, they'll have pads for other retail and commercial uses. They are in talks with a vision clinic to locate on the southeastern side of the parcel. But they're also, there's been some discussion about a potential like food truck plaza out in that area that would be a little bit kind of a different type of development out in the northeast area that might, it would be pretty unique and I think go with some of the other pickleball type uses and other uses that are starting to go in out there.
Is them moving their facility or adding on to, because they have another location or two, don't they?
Do you know if they're moving?
No,
They're gonna, it's an addition, yeah.
As you see the growth out in that north.
Was this the Walker John one?
This is not Walker John. The
Okay,
Walker John was the one Grant talked about. It was Samra's
Yeah.
project with the chicken and pickle.
And the Starbucks.
okay.
Sorry.
Chicken and pickles.
Look at the market out in the northeast area and south of the freeway as a service area. So
Is that supposed to have the housing on top of the retail? Was that?
Not at, the Hickory is purely commercial. The Martin Way or the mixed use, Hogan Bay mixed use is gonna have some apartments with commercial.
Over this part of the property. I think it was 350 units.
So this is zoned Hawkesbury Business District, and Hawkesbury Business District permits some residential above commercial, but it doesn't require residential.
So this site here, just some history on it. I believe the initial application that came in many years ago, or the intent that the developer had was to make a hotel there. They no longer found that to be feasible on site just due to some size limitations. So instead, they pivoted to do a mixed use commercial retail building. When we had our first conversations in the pre-sub, they were thinking about doing commercial below and having residential above it. They then pivoted again, and so this will be mixed use in the capacity to be retail below, office space above. This site also got an increase in density due to some assets that they included, which was the main one being a pedestrian plaza there on the easternmost part of the, or westernmost part of the side, westernmost side of the development. It's going to be, their intent is to have a cafe with a large plaza out there. And they've gone through design review and landscaping approval, and I believe right now they're just working with our building department.
So this is another project in the Woodland zoning district. This is on the Golf Club Road roundabout and Selma Street. This is another multi-care, or is a multi-care project. It's an off-campus emergency department. And the building will be built on the southern portion of the parcel, overlooking with a plaza out to the roundabout. And it received conditional use permit approval, I believe, back in June. It's a 10,000 square foot emergency medical office building. It'll be open 24 hours and is intended to take some pressure off of the hospitals for emergency medical needs. A large 24-hour, essentially an urgent care facility, but it will have some minor surgical, it won't have surgical beds, but they'll be able to do some minor procedures at that facility.
Not be the form-based construction also.
It will be form-based construction.
Oh,
Yep,
said
yep.
something out by the roundabout.
So the building will be focused on the roundabout. there, and then with a urban wall frontage, and then it also fronts along Golf Club Road, and then we'll have a wall along Golf Club Road as well. There will be a few significant trees that we're working with them to save on the site. There is some some soil remediation that needs to be done on the site. There was some old, I think, deledrin pollution associated with a couple of the houses on the near Fred Meyer. So they'll be doing some soil remediation, which makes it difficult to save trees. There are some really nice trees on site though that we're working with them on saving. And then they'll also be saving they do have to do frontage improvements, and typically that would require they typically would be required to remove the frontage that's there now, including those ash trees. They are going to save the ash trees, and we're just gonna adjust the sidewalk so that that tree canopy stays in place with that development while still meeting the requirements of the form-based code for the new frontage. Multi-Care, I believe, does own most of Selma Street, both sides of the street, and I believe that at some point in the future, they'll be coming in with additional projects for that location.
Because it's just this part, right?
Right, except for the car wash and the vet clinic, yes.
Is that street there vacated or is it open?
It is open right now. They
Okay.
may at some point in the future ask that it be vacated. They've brought that up a couple of times, but they've never fully explored that with us. And then out to the northeast area again, this is across the street from the Ole Orthopedic project that we just talked about, and it is located, the proposal is for a Marriott hotel, 136 rooms. It's a 5-story hotel. This project is in land use review right now. It would be behind the Providence Clinic that's out there, the Providence building, in the Britton Plaza development. Britton Plaza is a mixed use development with lots of commercial uses and medical uses as well. There will still be 3 pads, I believe, available for commercial development once the Marriott Hotel goes in. But they, I think, are anxious to get started on that as well and potentially be under construction sometime next year on that project.
So this site here is going to be Quinell Self-Storage. It'll be a self-storage facility, 2 stories, 80,000 square feet for the primary structure. It's not shown here on the site plan, but it'll be on the north end of the site, but the left side of the picture here, they're going to have 3 smaller self-storage units as well. 1 story, just more like garage units for the more classic sense of the storage units. This is out just north of Home Depot there, next to the new Chick-fil-A. As I am to understand it, this site was almost always intended to be self-storage. It just never developed until now. It's in our general commercial zone, so it's any commercial capacity can go in there. Things to note on this site are to be, since it does butt up to single family residence there, it will have the 15-foot type 1 landscape buffer.
I thought that there was just a massive self-storage just on the other side of the freeway constructed. I mean,
Yes.
it seems like a very interesting use of land. Space when you have some little buildable land, like how's all your extra stuff that you don't really want?
I think a lot of it comes from having the military population that we do in Lacey, especially out here on the Martin Way corridor. Like I used to live in the Mark, and a lot of them were military individuals that live down here and would commute, and often having a place to store it when they go abroad or things of that nature is a large component, as I understand, at least in that area.
There's a new one behind Walgreens there too. That's, what is that, like
Yeah.
a quarter just down there?
And just north of through, like you mentioned, the new one that's up there, just off of Oakland Bay Road and Willamette
You and on Lily and on Pacific.
Pacific. Yeah.
and
And
both of them going in.
whether they're, it's just, they have more population growth, people have stuff. A lot of times when they run out of space in their garage and yeah. And then,
Not say it.
And then also like up north, the Jubilee community, there's always been clamoring for storage and RV storage space. And that's what the project in north of the freeway is accommodating, is even RV and the trailer storage.
They're also pretty low risk for
Yeah.
property owners because people just pay for their storage. They don't have to really monitor or
It's a low,
low risk, high reward.
High
development.
profitability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and so again, we don't have, that's one of the things we want to take a look at too, is are we losing available land? While there's a service need there, it doesn't add a lot of value to our community in the sense of, doesn't, in the commercial sense, doesn't bring in the same type of revenue for commercial property or activity. And of course, we also need land for housing and other opportunities too. So that's some of the things too that going in forward is that we think about and we talk about is how do we look at what type of uses are more appropriate for our community going forward?
Well, they seem to be going in high density areas of like apartments and bus routes, and these aren't places people go on a daily basis. And so they're not like a restaurant or, some sort of other retail. So, because they're going into some, you
So
would
that's
think
a-
pretty high use retail that could be.
Well, Pacific Ave location, that could have been a whole different look in Jack, Pacific Ave, the one on Oakland Bay, but this particular site is, I gotta remember too, it's tucked away.
Yeah, that one is.
It's not a good commercial retail
It's not
site.
residential.
It could be some residential, but again, it's zone general commercial and there may not be a lot of commercial use that can be viable with that particular property characteristic. With no frontage, no visibility, access is hard.
So storage is not transit oriented? Is that what I'm hearing?
One box at a time.
Yeah.
So City Life Church received its conditional use permit approval in August. It's a 10,000 square foot church. It's right across the street from North Thurston High School on 6th Avenue Northeast. They also have approval to build a gymnasium in the future on their parcel. It's immediately south of I was gonna call it Bradley Park subdivision. The Bradley Park subdivision is that treed area, which isn't treed anymore. Bradley Park was approved, had preliminary plat approval last year, I believe, and is under construction. I can't remember how many single family houses that is. But during that subdivision process, they set aside 5 acres to the south for the construction of this church. The church will also have a coffee shop on the 6th Avenue frontage as part of its facility that'll be open to the public as well as some other community spaces.
This is Samra.
Yeah.
So this is some basically the old style strip commercial retail development off of Marvin Road. I believe this is the Les Schwab. So we've got the apartment. So
Car wash.
yeah, right across from the car wash. So
They're kind of commercial industrial flex buildings that could, are they about 10,000? I can't
Yeah.
tell.
This is totally 30, yeah.
total 34 buildings.
4 buildings, so.
Yep.
So they're kind of that flex use that could have.
Yep.
Different type of uses and activities in them, and lack of a better phrase, good starter space too.
Yep.
For those businesses. If you're familiar, right over here at Lacey Boulevard, or not Lacey Boulevard, College Street behind the Starbucks and cut right all, there's like 3 buildings back in there that kind of have different
Yep.
types of uses when you're.
Same kind of incubator type development.
At this location?
No, it's not like one that goes up.
No, I think it's pretty flat.
Well, it's low, but no.
It's behind that self-storage. I think you were just talking about.
Yeah.
There was an old house there that kept
Yep.
getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
And there's a gradual slope going from this Marvin Road into the property. It rises a little bit.
Okay, so Olympia Behavioral Health, this was a proposal for a 75,104 bed behavioral health hospital up on Marvin Road. It's about a, let's see, it's a 22 acre parcel with about 6 usable acres that aren't in wetland or sensitive areas. And so the proposal was to build a hospital on the east side of the site and preserve the rest in wetland and open space and tree tract areas. There is a wetland of high conservation value on the site that was going to be protected and set aside. It got its land use approval, I want to say a year and a half ago, maybe. At this point, I think the project is on permanent hold. I think it would be a really good use for the site, considering the fact that most of it's zoned light industrial. It had to have a conditional use permit approval to go in. But it was a use that would really preserve most of the site in open space and green space and a high conservation value wetland. I hope that it comes off permanent hold at some point and maybe we can see this move forward.
And these are the last two because they are kind of, nothing's been happening with them, but we did hold a interesting public hearing with the hearing examiner who recommended approval of the Meridian Bark that went to city council, and they upheld the approval. And that's the last we've really heard from the developer. So nothing's been submitted for design review or plan review or anything. So the status is just pending at this point, approved but pending further action.
Is that delay, or is that a delay, or is that just typical, or do you think there's meaning in that?
No meaning, you know, some things they haven't got their financing together yet, so they're working on that, and the market conditions may have changed, you know, with interest rates, you know, who knows. But it's not any city issue that's holding it up. It's the developer's choice. So one of the themes here as we go through this is the number of times names change on projects, and there's like what 3 or 4 different landing projects. So the current planning team has decided that we're banning certain project names. There will be no Gateway landing at the hub, no the landing hub at Gateway, and no the hub Gateway at the landing. So we're done with trying to sort out all those different projects and where they're located. So a little
Kind of ban the term campus from projects too.
those are all they're grandfathered because all those ones are done. Those are done. So just a little snapshot on some of the other things that are going on. Just this year through the end of September, we've issued. Now this is not in construction or plan review. These are permits that were out the door. 15 multifamily buildings with 197 units. The estimated value of that construction is just over $21 million. We've issued 38 single family dwellings permits, which is Wade was just shocked because he's never done less than at least 150 since he's been here, with a almost $12 million value. The interesting thing though, I think, and the reason I kind of point those two out is we're really creating the same number of units, and just as we have in the past every year. It's just that different form. A lot more multifamily, which we've touched on quite a bit. 4 manufactured homes, 1 duplex, and 2 accessory dwelling units. One thing that kind of stuck out to me as I ran the reports is, and I knew this just from our online permit portal and how popular it is with for solar permits, we're issuing a lot of rooftop solar residential permits. Yep, a ton of them. Also, I don't know, I haven't looked at this in context, but 85 air conditioners seems high. That could very well be a sign of the times with climate change and the summers. I wish I lived in a air conditioning unit this year. And the same thing with heat pumps. We seem to be seeing a lot of conversions to heat pumps from the old furnace systems. And then just kind of not the new construction, but kind of something that we see and kind of monitor to see how things are going on the retail end. We've had a number of commercial remodels and tenant improvements, which means that spaces are being reoccupied and updated, which is a good thing. And then finally, we've done 52 pre-submission meetings so far this year, which is healthy. I mean, we're seeing a lot of interest, continuing interest in developing and helping to build out Lacey. And that is what we have for you. We'll be happy to answer any questions. And as promised, but not for Samra, I wouldn't have said a word this whole time, except for the joke about the names. But we'll certainly, if we want to go back to something or get more updates, please let us know.
That was a really great overview, really great update. So thank you, all of you. That was
Yeah,
really good to see.
And I
there
would
is
also,
a ton of information in this.
and this will be online tomorrow, so we'll post it on our website so people can all fix some of my fat finger issues there that I mistyped. And also, I'd just like to give a shout out to Carlos Aviles, our building inspector, who ran out today for me and got all those great pictures of the projects in under construction. So really appreciate his effort. He was
Great.
also the gentleman who stepped forward to do the video for the quasi-judicial hearing examiner process. So he's kind of our go-to media guy now too.
Nice. Any questions for Grant or the gang there?
I asked him as we went.
Okay, we will move on. Any special communication and announcements? No? So our next meeting is October 18th. Hopefully I'll be able to drive by then and I can attend in person. So as usual, thank you for everything you do. And what, Rick?
I just want to, I almost forgot to add to you, just in the future, in this next summer, we really want to get back to having this type of update, maybe go through this virtual, because it's a really nice presentation format that Grant and Sarah and Reese and Sam put together, but also follow up maybe in the following meeting to do a bus tour of the location. So you can go out to the ground and look at those things. Because we used to do before COVID, an annual joint planning commission council bus tour. And I think now we have this type of format that can really set up that tour to be more informed and spur questions. So anyway, I throw that out there as a future goal for next summer is to restart those actual tours around.
Yeah, it is very good to be able to actually see the sites, and kind of get a different perspective. So.
And we really wanted to highlight those live work units at Serenity, because that seems to be a trend. And, I think that's just kind of cool. So we would have been able to get out and go into some of the projects as well.
Yeah. Okay, again, our next meeting is October 18th. If there's no other action, I guess we are adjourned and thank you.